What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. This is JNC Jib here, and we are going to be doing a look into the next format, getting ready for YCS Orlando with the introduction of Supreme Darkness coming out in the next few weeks. Supreme Darkness is kind of a support set to crossover breakers and themes that we got in Rage of the Abyss. It's not really that great of a standalone set, but these are some cards that I think stand out just from the set in general. So what I personally think is the best card in the entire set with the most longevity is Primite, another Burial. And basically what this card does is on normal summon sets a Primite spell or trap from your deck, and you contribute it to send a normal monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then during the standby phase, if you have a normal monster on your field or in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand. So this card is a really good starter for the Primite archetype, which, if you did not know, is a series of spells and monsters which revolve around summoning normal monsters from basically anywhere. And what the Primite archetype was lacking was a reliable way in order to search their best spell, which is already out in the game. So I would pick up my copies now, being Primite Lordy Load, which this card says when it's activated can add a Primite card from your deck to your hand. Then you can declare one monster card name, special summon the declared normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard in defense mode, but you cannot activate the special summoned monster. But also cannot activate the effect of special summon monsters on the field this turn, which is not an issue because the main deck that we're going to be using these cards in the foreseeable future is Blue Eyes, which you're just going to be summoning seals a lot, and is a very grindy control deck using the Primite engine in order to gain advantage over a bunch of turns, and using the Blue Eyes cards in order to apply pressure with big synchro monsters and Crimson Dragon and summoning synchro 12s. So I think that this card is probably just the best card in the entire set. It's a very good card, and it's very anticipated for the Primite archetype. And if you know anything about the TCG, usually people find a way to use new cards in a way that we haven't seen in the OCG. So I'm very interested to see how players decide to use the Primite engine going forward in the future. The next series of cards that I think has some potential are the Crystron support cards. The Crystron is a archetype from Zexal or Arc 5, which is basically a synchro spam deck, and it's never seen any real competitive success. The most competitively successful Crystron card is Halki Fibrax, which is banned. So yeah, that's probably where you know these cards, the name Crystron from, is from Hulk. But Crystron, yes, is his own archetype, and they're getting 5 new support cards, 2 monsters, a spell trap, and a new synchro monster. And these cards actually do a lot for the archetype to make them semi-competitive, if not competitive. First we have Crystron Crystallus, which says when your opponent activates a card quick effect, you can special summon one Crystron monster from your deck except for itself. Then immediately after this resolves, synchro summon one machine ritual using monsters you control. You can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy one synchro monster you control, and if you do, special summon 2 Crystron monsters from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for machines. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this is the new Hulk for the Crystron archetype, and this card is a custom card. Whenever your opponent does anything, you're able to E-Tele a Crystron from your deck and then synchro summon, which is an incredibly powerful effect. Keep in mind that just this card by itself applies a lot of pressure, so summoning this card next to a combo just makes it so that if your opponent interacts with you in any way, you're able to get a +1 and a synchro summon, and Crystron has some really powerful synchro monsters. So this is just a custom card, great card for the Crystron deck. The next card is Crystron Sulfur Hole, and it says if this card is in your hand or in your graveyard, you can target a Crystron card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for machine monsters. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send 2 Crystron cards with different name from your deck to your graveyard. You can only use each except for itself. You can only use the effect of Crystron Sulfur Hole once per turn. So this card is actually super broken. This card is really broken because if you know anything about the Crystron archetype, what they do is they have monsters that in the graveyard banish themselves in order to get effects. So for instance, one of the better Crystron monsters is Crystron Sniger, if I'm saying the name correctly. Crystron. I can't spell right now. Where is this guy? Yeah. Crystron Smiger. And basically what this card does is you can banish it from the graveyard in order to add a Crystron spell or trap from your hand. So this card is a semi-starter, or it is a one-card starter with a new card that we're going to talk about also that I think has some potential. But basically Crystrons have a lot of effects in the graveyard that require themselves to be banished in order to gain advantage. The next card is Crystron Inclusion. And it says when this card is activated, add a Crystron card from your deck to your hand, except for Inclusion. The first time each of your Crystron monsters would be destroyed by a battle each turn, it is not destroyed. You can banish this card from your graveyard, and if you do target a Crystron monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use this effective inclusion once per turn. You can only activate one inclusion once per turn. So again, another custom cards. Usually what Konami does is they give these under-supported archetypes like really broken support in order to try to make them more modern. And these three cards already are very modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We got a Rhoda, we got a Dump 2, and we got a custom like mini Hulk. So these cards are very good. And then the trap card is Crystron Cluster, and it says Crystron cards you control cannot be banished by your opponent's card effect. You can target one face-up card on the field, or two if you control a Crystron Synchro monster. Shuffle one Crystron card from your graveyard or banishment back into the deck, except for Cluster, and if you do, destroy the targeted cards. So yeah, and we get a Raigeki Break type card, continuous spell that just sits on the field each turn is just interruption. This is a very solid 4 cards for the Crystron archetype, and I do expect people to mess around with this archetype. Out of all the archetypes coming out in Suda, I don't think there's much that is very good, but this is definitely the best of the new archetypes coming out in Suda. The next are some standalone cards that I think are great, or semi-support for existing archetypes. The next one I'll talk about is Molcharmi Narilis, which is basically a Charmy for the graveyard and banish pile. Each time your opponent summons from the graveyard or from the banish pile, you draw a card. So an immediate application that we can see for this card is for people that want to side more for Malice, which is gaining a lot of popularity and is the second best deck of the format. Also, this engine is very good against every deck splashing Fiendsmith cards. Just getting free draws from Lurie, from Engraver, summoning back from the graveyard, etc. just seems really, really good. So this card has some potential to see some meta play. I don't know if it'll completely be in everyone's side deck. I'm still not 100% sold on this card, but I do think that it has some really good meta applications. The next card that we can talk about is Template Skipper. I'm going to talk about this card very briefly because I don't think that this card is very good in Malice. I think that the reason why this card sees any play in the OCG is because all of the Bestials are limited to 1, and this card is just a strictly worse Bestial. The only thing that it has going for it is that it is a Cybers monster, so you can search it with Signet Mining, but we're already not even playing Signet Mining at the moment, so I don't think it really makes sense to play a card like this. And it says you can special summon this card from your hand to a zone that a Cybers Link monster points to. You can only special summon Template Skipper once per turn this way. During the main phase, you can banish one Cybers monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, treat this card as link material with the same name as the banished monster used for a link summon this turn. So it has 2 separate effects. One, it can summon itself to a zone that a link monster points to, so it's an extender. And then the second effect is you can banish basically this card was made for Malice, so they want you to banish a Malice from your grave or your hand in order for it to copy the name, which is cool, meaning that it can be counted as a Malice monster in order to link summon into the link 3s. However, this is a card that has to be comboed at least with another Malice monster, so at best it's a worse Bestial, because at least with the Bestials, there are hand traps that we can use on the opponent's turn in order to interact with their Fiendsmith cards or their light and dark monsters. But it's an interesting card, but I just don't think that it has a place in the deck right now. Maybe in the future, if we see some limits to the Bestials, this card could potentially work its way into the Malice deck. The next card, or the next 2 cards that I want to talk about, are the new Teny cards. We have Teny Spirit Shoria, and we have Teny Spirit Mula Adhara. And these cards are actually pretty good for the Sword Soul deck. However, I still think that the Sword Soul deck suffers from the issues that it's always suffered from. It's a 2-card combo deck. This card kind of tries to solve the issue that the Sword Soul deck traditionally had with Moye being stopped or your normal summon being stopped, and what's it called? The one that summons itself from hand, Longyon being your only extender. So this card allows you to special summon itself from the hand if you control a worm or a face-up non-effect monster, and it's a level 4 tuner. So it's meant to be able to be the missing piece for when your normal summon gets stopped. You're still able to get to your Shishao, which is cool. So this card is excellent, and this card is just a very good card that potentially will see more play in the future, because on summon it searches a field spell from your deck to your hand, which is just a crazy effect if you think about it. Being able to search any field spell is basically an ancient fairy dragon without you having to have a field spell. But I just don't think that they make Sorcel where we want it to be. And then the last card, and arguably I would say probably the most anticipated card in the set, or one of the most anticipated cards in the set, is Azamina Azet of the White Forest, which is Azamina card and a White Forest card, which is very good for the Diabellstar pile deck that people are brewing with the Azamina, the White Wood, and the Wanted cards. And it says, you can reveal this card in your hand, special summon one White Forest or Azamina monster from your hand. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one Azamina fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can add one Sinful Spoil card from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Azamina Azet of the White Forest once per turn. So yeah, this card just bridges Azamina and White Forest cards and Wanted cards, excuse me. So this card is just the best of all three words. It's an Azamina card, it's a Whitewood card, and it searches Sinful Spoil. So this is just a very excellent card for the whole lore pile deck. We'll have to see how this card performs in the TCG, but it has seen some good amount of play in the OCG. We'll just have to see when it comes to this. Then for probably the second best card in the entire set is Twins of the Eclipse. This card is direct support for Rizal. It takes 2 level 4 monsters, and it says, for this card's Exceed summon, you can treat rank 4 monsters you control as level 4 monsters as material. I don't know why it has that effect, but okay, I guess. So you can overlay 2 rank 4s into this. It says you can detach 1 material from this card. This card can attack up to 2 times, can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during the battle phase this turn. It says, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target 2 rank 4 or lower monsters in your graveyard. Special summon one of them, and if you do, attach the other to it. So this second effect is basically just here for you to send this off of X. So you summon X Rizal by sending this to the graveyard and target 2 of your Xyz in the graveyard. Special summon one and attach the other. So this is the crazy turn 3 play for Rizal. Being able to start your turn 3 off by summoning back a dual drive or summoning back a detonator from the graveyard is crazy value. This also fixes some of the follow-up issues that Rizal has had in the past. Also, what it does is on turn 1, now instead of sending Aggregator, you can send this and put this card under your detonator. So now when your detonator is threatened by destruction, or you can use detonator to pop itself and then revive itself, which is actually really, really crazy. So it just allows the non-pure Rizal deck to have sort of like a mini plugin card in its arsenal, which is crazy, which was one of the main reasons to play pure over another variant is access to plugin. But with this card functioning as a plugin is kind of crazy. Then the next, probably the most interesting card, or my favorite card in the set, is Abu Aku, the Lightless Shadow. I think that this card is really neat. I don't know if it'll be great immediately, but I do think that it has some really good potential in the future. And it says it requires 2 monsters, including a Fiend monster. It says during the main phase quick effect, you can discard 1 card to activate one of these effects, destroy 1 card on the field, or banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, special summon 1 light or dark monster from your graveyard. During your standby phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of different monster types among the monsters in your graveyard, then place the same amount of cards from your hand to the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Abu Aku, the Lightless Shadow, once per turn. So it's just a very interesting card. Has a slight restriction, requires you to summon it using a Fiend, so not every deck can use it. Technically, every deck can use it by using Nightmare monsters, but you know, it forces like another extra deck requirement, or for you to be playing Fiend monsters in your deck. And it's just a very interesting card effect. Being able to reborn any light or dark is not future proof at all, so it's a broken card. However, I don't see the immediate applications that are super better than what we're doing right now with our decks. But in the future, it, like I said, is not a future-proof card. And then also being a disruption is crazy. And then this third effect just didn't need to be here. Being able to sculpt your hand every turn that this card survives, and being able to guarantee this card's survival by banishing it until the end phase, and then draw a bunch of cards on your next turn. It's just a very good card all around, and I definitely like this card a lot. The next card is Clockwork Knight, which takes one non-link machine monster with 1,000 or less original attack, and says when this card is link summoned, you can send one face of continuous spell you control to the graveyard, add one Clockwork Knight from your deck to your hand. You can target a machine monster with 1,000 or less attack in your graveyard, tribute one other machine monster, and if you do, special summon the target in defense mode. So the important part about this card is that it's a link 1 for machine monsters. Machine monsters now have a reliable link 1, and it also is able to reborn a machine monster in defense mode. It doesn't even negate its effects. So this is just a very, very good card, and it will definitely see more play in the future, if not on release. The last Synchro Monster is not an amazing card, but I just think that it's a card that you guys should be aware of, because this card sees a lot of play in the OCG right now in Blue Eyes. So it's just, it's a card that if you're expecting to play Blue Eyes, or you're looking to play Blue Eyes in the future, it's definitely something that I would have just laying around. It's probably be like a common or super rare, but it says when this card is, it takes a tuner plus a non-tuner, light level 8 dragon. It says when this card is special summoned, you can target spell or traps on the field up to the number of normal monsters in your graveyard plus 1, destroy them. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one spell or trap in your graveyard, set it, but it cannot be activated unless you control a normal monster. You can only use each effect of Light Storm Dragon once per turn. This is obviously a Blue Eyes card that you're supposed to be able to summon off a Spirit Dragon, because Spirit Dragon can tag itself out for other Light Dragon Synchro monsters. So being able to pop at least one back row, because it says +1, so if you have no normal monsters in your graveyard, you pop one back row. But if you have one Blue Eyes in the grave, you can pop 2 back row. And then when it's destroyed, you set any spell or trap back from the graveyard, and you can only activate it if you have a Blue Eyes on the board. You kind of get where this card is going. So this is just direct Blue Eyes support, and it's a good card. And then as for the cards in the side, these are cards that I don't think are necessarily amazing, but I think have high potential for the future. I included the Mermail support here because I know that we have some fans of Atlanteans. Shout out to Selza. These cards are okay. They don't solve the issues that Mermail has, but they're solid support cards. This card, Delta of Temptations. This card is very good. This card is very, 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 very good. I think that this is like the Primite card. I think this is an instant pickup on release of the set. I think that everyone should have their copies of this card, because this card is definitely a card that will be expensive in the future and probably bought out if people aren't onto it really early. And it says when this card is activated, you can send one level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Delta Temptation once per turn. If a zombie monster is on your field, you can special summon one Delta token, zombie level 5, blah blah blah, 0 attack, 0 defense. If a monster is added from your graveyard to your hand while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. You can only activate one Delta Temptation once per turn. Okay, so on activation, the immediate synergy is you're able to send Eldritch the Golden Lord to the graveyard. So on activation, this card sends Eldritch the Golden Lord to the graveyard. Then you can send another spell or trap to from your field to the graveyard to summon Golden Lord, and then summon a token. Keep in mind, none of this restricts you. So just by itself, this card gets you access to a Golden Lord plus a token. And this is generic that can be used in any deck, because there are no restrictions on this card. So this card by itself gets you access to 2 bodies, one floating Golden Lord that basically floats infinitely, infinitely floating Golden Lord, which if you know anything about Golden Lord, is just an amazing removal card, being able to discard itself plus another spell or trap to send any card on the field to the graveyard. And then it's a body that can summon itself, a 35 body that's indestructible. So you can do that infinitely for the rest of the game. So any deck has access to one Golden Lord, which isn't really a brick, because if you draw Golden Lord, it's still a removal card, so it's still a good card going second. and a token every turn. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard and you use Golden Lord's effect to add itself back, because the way that Golden Lord works for those who weren't playing when this card was popular is you send a spell or trap from your field to the graveyard to add itself back to your hand, then you have the option to special summon it. So if you use that while this card's in the graveyard, it adds itself back. So you have an infinite engine of 2 bodies every turn with this card plus a Golden Lord in your deck. So this is just a very good engine for the future. I don't know when we'll see play, but I know that we're getting a Golden Lord support in the set after Pseudo, which looks promising. I think that this engine is something that you should have access to and be aware of. The next card that I think is pretty solid is Double Wild. It's a quick play spell that says target a level 4 or lower monster you control. You cannot special summon a monster for the rest of the turn. After this card resolves, except monsters with the same original type as the targeted monster. Also add 1 level 10 monster with the original type from your deck to your hand, then you can apply one of these effects. Discard 1 card, and if you do special summon the monster, special summon 1 monster with the same type as the added monster from your hand in defense. So this card just basically adds any level 10 monster from your deck to your hand. Excuse me. So for instance, in a deck like Yugioh, you're able to target any of your fiends, add a Yugioh monster or a spirit, and then special summon it by discarding a card. The original idea I thought about was an Infernoble, just me being me thinking about Infernoble. In Infernoble, you can lock yourself into warriors in order to add Gearfried from your deck to your hand, because Gearfried is he's a level 10 warrior monster, fire warrior. So you can add a Gearfried from your deck to your hand and discard a card, like an equip spell or something, then banish it to summon it, which I thought was cool. And you're already locked into fire, so it doesn't really matter. So I thought that that was interesting. This is just a very interesting card. It's another card that I think I would just have my playsets of. And then the last card that I wanted to talk about is the new Fiendsmith Rex Tamperday. It's a new Fiendsmith fusion monster, which I think is pretty solid. It takes 1 Fiendsmith fusion monster plus 1 fusion or link monster. It is unaffected by card effects. It's unaffected by card effects except Fiendsmith cards while it's equipped with a Fiendsmith equip spell. You can only use each of the following effects of Fiendsmith Rex once per turn. It says if this card is fusion summoned, you can discard 1 card, send 1 Light Fiend monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 other Fiendsmith card in your grave or banishment, add it back to your hand. So I don't know how necessarily great this card is or if this card will see play. I just thought that it was another interesting Fiendsmith card. It's a little bit harder to summon now that we don't have Lacrima. So it requiring a Fiendsmith fusion monster basically just means Desiree. But it's a card that allows your sequence to recycle your Desiree if you send Desiree off to the graveyard off of Paradise, which I thought was interesting. And it's another card you can send off of Paradise in order to recycle banished cards like your Requiem if it gets banished by Bishtil. So I thought that this was kind of interesting for the pure Kashtira Fiendsmith deck. Maybe you play 1 copy of this card as a card that you can dump off of Paradise. And it kind of allows you to recycle Paradise infinitely, because you can banish Paradise, send this, and then add back Paradise, which kind of just allows you to cycle Paradise, because then you can shuffle this back to make Desiree. So it kind of allows you to recycle your Paradise infinitely, which I think is kind of cool. So that's kind of all I have to talk about when it comes to Supreme Darkness. Definitely make sure to check out the set in preparation for YCS Orlando. But with that being said, have a great day, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace.